Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Starbase friends from around the world. Astro Joe here. Welcome to a very special RGV Aerial Photography Weekly episode number 99, featuring today's IFT2 launch. I'm going to send it over to Todd Bernal.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for having me again. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've had an unbelievable day, and forgive us because most of us are running on very little sleep. Probably you guys too. Well, we got some great pictures coming up. I'm going to send it over to Jake, Max Q today.
Hey everyone, it's good to be back, and what an exciting day it's been. And yeah, we got some pretty awesome photos to go over. And with that, I will pass it over to Ryan.
Hello, well, pass it over to me, please. Stephanie, g'day from Australia. This is episode 99, one off from 100, and welcome to the stream. And I'm going to pass it over to Ryan. Thank you. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another weekly episode. And in case you hadn't heard, Starship has launched again. This morning, Starship took off on its second flight and managed to squeeze it in the 20-minute window on the first attempt with all 33 engines lit. So pretty big day for SpaceX. So we'll spend a little bit of time here digging into the flight, doing a little bit of a recap as we go, and kind of set the stage a little bit for everything to kind of talk about here later on in the episode. So like I said, pretty much the count went off without a hitch. SpaceX started their stream about 30 minutes before launch. We did end up holding at the 40-second mark for a little bit while they finished up some stuff. It was interesting. They actually the first launch we held for a booster pressurization, and this launch we held for a ship pressurization. So little things pop up there, and they fix them as they go. So but yeah, it was a beautiful launch. We could not have asked for better weather. I know a lot of people were worried about the fog and the cloud cover, but it looked absolutely beautiful. SpaceX had pretty good views as always. Yeah, we got all the way down to ignition, and all 33 engines lit, which was a huge milestone for SpaceX. Previously, I think 33 had lit, but some had aborted. But here we are with 33 engines lit and continuing to climb without any aborts. And we continued to climb, passing through the expected max Q, and we still had 33 engines lit. So that's a huge step up from IFT1, where we were losing engines here and there as some of them happened to have some unscheduled disassemblies. And Ship 25 lost a couple of tiles on its way up. Not really a huge concern. Ship 25 was fairly old. Quite frankly, they didn't really, keep up on the tile work that well. So I don't think the tiles were really all that important or really a milestone they wanted to test exclusively with this flight. But something that they did want to test exclusively was the hot staging. And they actually managed to get hot staging to work this time. All of the fears of booster exploding or ship exploding, that didn't actually happen. They managed to actually successfully complete the hot staging, and we'll see that here in a little bit. But something to note, Starship was going about twice the speed and about twice the altitude at about, I think it was 2.5 minutes into flight compared to IFT1. So there was interesting comparisons to kind of throw out there. But we had pretty good tracking footage from SpaceX as the combination went here higher and higher and further from the pad. So we got much further downrange than we did during IFT1. This shot here is the one that SpaceX held on to give us visuals for the hot staging, which actually managed to be pretty good footage, all things considered. But staging was a little bit higher than I think some of us predicted. It was actually around 70 kilometers, and I think a lot of us were estimating it would be 60 to 65. So it's a little bit higher than at least I expected. I can't remember the exact time for staging, but I know it's coming up here soon. But most engine cut off on the booster, which is a play on the acronym. 3 engines stayed lit, and they pitch the booster over here as Starship ignites and starts to fly away. The camera chose to track the booster, but this is where things get a little hairy for the booster. We start to see a little bit of puffs here and there, and it does seem like either 1 or 2 engines may have had an issue during the ignition for the boost back, which ultimately caused a couple other engines to go out, and then we believe the flight termination system activated on the booster right here. And so, all things considered, that was quite successful. It didn't look like there was a hole in the top of the booster, so the hot staging ring looks like it held up fine. But there's probably some stuff with the propellant management during that flip. And possibly even some conditioning on the Raptors for their relight that were causing some issues. So I feel like SpaceX can probably figure that out pretty quickly, what went wrong. But Ship 25 continued to fly with all 6 engines lit, which was pretty incredible. I know a lot of us at this point in time were pretty confident that it would actually make it all the way to second engine cutoff, and we think it actually did to some degree. It appears that the engines do turn off here shortly, and there is a call out on the net for like terminal guidance, and then we see what appears to be kind of the silhouette of the ship having a unscheduled disassembly. So something happened with the ship right around SECO, and we'll see that popping up here shortly. You can kind of so there's the cutoff for the engines, and then actually it might not have been cut off. That might have been just right venting. So there's a little bit more. Gotta keep an eye on that speed because it got to, I think, was it 24, I think, or 200 at 24, somewhere in there. yeah, so the engine's cut off there. We see a poof, that's presumably the purging, and then there's a silhouette of a large explosion. So that is presumably the ship breaking up, which is why we did not get signal after that. But huge milestone to get to that point. A lot of great views from SpaceX, and it's interesting all the shock waves you can actually see during the ignition here. If you look really close, you can actually see shock waves during the throttle up portion. But the stack flew off the pad this time a little faster than the last. One thing to note is what appears to be a tower avoidance maneuver. Something that we kind of saw in the first flight, but we were told it had something to do with the number of engines that were out and where they were out. But seeing as it did almost the exact same maneuver this time around with all 33 on, it does seem like either a tower avoidance was added or that was always the goal with this maneuver. But it kind of slides over to the side a little bit, straightens out, and then it starts its gravity turn here, which you can kind of see slowly as it pitches over. And at this point, it's pretty much free sailing all the way up through max Q. So I think I might have gotten everything pre-launch, and then here we have a video from somebody, I believe in Puerto Rico, that actually caught what appears to be a large chunk of the ship re-entering. This would be after the ship would have exploded. There is a small piece that kind of breaks off. You can kind of see. Of course, we don't really know what this is. It's presumably a large chunk of Ship 25. Given that the ship did explode, this could be possibly the nose payload section as it re-enters. So we'll have to see if anybody else captured any other video footage of this, or if anything else is released. But I think that's the bulk of the launch. Otherwise, it was absolutely amazing to see the Raptors perform the way that they had, compared to the first flight, which presumably had a lot of Raptor issues. So yeah, it's been a really, really exciting morning. And now we can jump into some photos related to the launch. And as you can see here, the launch site is much better than it was after the first launch. So we don't really see any concrete damage, which is pretty impressive. It pretty much states the effectiveness of the new water deflector system and how it was able to mitigate a lot of the load on the pad. So one thing to note also, this picture is showing the charring on the upper ring of the launch mount. You can see that the booster QD is quite toasty. There's a little bit of a symmetrical burning on each side of it. So that tower avoidance maneuver definitely cooked that side of the launch mount pretty good. We did see this after the first flight as well. SpaceX kind of cleaned stuff up. But the booster QD looks like it shut the way it should have this time. We didn't have any panels blown out on the sides of it. So, overpressurization within that booster QD looks like it at least is minimal until we're, told otherwise. So looks like the pad system's pretty much held up flawlessly. I'm honestly blown away at the contrast for this flight compared to the first one. Steel plate looks like it's still there. Until they, run an operational test, we can't, say for certain that it's not harmed, but it definitely looks like it could be operational, at least from the aerial views and some of the ground views that have been kind of trickling in. So, do you guys have anything to add on this, or?
I mean, yeah, I'm impressed with how it went today. There was, I guess, yeah, they didn't hit every single goal they wanted to hit, but it was still, I'd say, a pretty big success. And they still have, well, from what it looks like so far, a still working orbital pad. So it means they can hopefully keep moving quickly with the testing campaign for the next set of vehicles. But yeah, it's all that data that they gathered from IFT1. I mean, it looks like they've utilized it as much as possible and made all the changes that needed to happen. And yeah, it worked. I'm just really impressed.
It appears that the only thing that could prevent them from putting another full stack on the pad as of right now would be some of the damage that the ship QD sustained. And I don't think we have any photos of that particularly right now, but there is a piston on the ship QD that is. It looks like it got sheared off from a pivot point, so the ship QD is kind of leaning a little bit to the side. That really should not be that big of a fix, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even fixed by the end of this week, maybe even the following week. But yeah, we'll see. Doesn't mean that they will put a full stack out here, but being that that's the only noticeable thing on the actual orbital pad, that is pretty impressive.
Oh, we do have a bit of damage on the chopsticks as well. We did notice one of the chopsticks decided to deploy one of the ship lifting pins during that liftoff. Not entirely sure how that happened. So yeah, that's one bit of damage, and there is some wiring that's damaged, but that's nothing major.
It looks like a majority of the damage is from the shockwave. I know, obviously, the QD and the chopsticks are probably from direct hit, but everything else just looks like it's been peeled away from the shockwave. One thing that I really enjoyed about the launch was watching the engines, the lighting and ending sequence. You could really see exactly what they were trying to do. I know normally we go to you, Ryan, to try to figure out which engine's lit when we're doing static fires, but it was really cool to see the exact order they went when they were doing that.
So
Yeah,
there's
a
a bit
lot
of
of
damage on those tanks. Go ahead.
So yeah, so the damage we're looking at there now, it's, well, we just suspect it's not caused by debris of any kind, but caused by the shockwaves from the launch. And this is something that'll likely keep happening whilst these tanks are still present. There's not really much they can do to mitigate this. But yeah, apart from that, it's pretty good in the tank farm. Does look like there was a bit of insulation ripped off on the heat exchanger on the side there, in the methane side of the tank farm. But I think that was already coming off anyway. They never actually repaired it since IFT1. And I think we did see a bit of damage over by the electrical bunker.
Yeah, one of the tops of the LOX tanks was blown off, one of the caps on the top. Don pointed that out, Blackwater. And it's laying on top, closer to the launch pad.
Oh yeah, on the
laying
front
on
side
the
of
edge
that.
over there.
Well spotted.
Yeah, I totally missed that one. But yeah, over there next to the bunker, you can see some damage to the vents over there.
I believe that the air conditioning units kind of rummage those pipes around a little bit. The ductwork seems like it came disconnected from the bunker a little bit. Yeah, pretty minimal damage over there.
We do also have a bit of damage to the FTS bunker too. There's the AC unit had been knocked off somehow. Hopefully there's no charges still in there, so that shouldn't really be a concern.
Just down there somewhere.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Now, some of the Fondag also appeared to be a little bit more cracked than I remembered. On the left-hand side of the OLM from that picture. And this time about 10 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's worth noting. You can see on some of the Starbase live stream cameras, they have actually started setting up white cones around something over there, and that may be a bit of fondag that's lifting up a bit.
Definitely got some charring going on there. It's a nice shade of matte black.
Yeah, it's a nice gradient on top of the launch ring now.
And they did collect some water. Okay, so we've got nothing more to say about the launch for now. It was very exciting. It was daytime for me. The lead up was 3 in my afternoon, and into midnight. The launch was at midnight. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable afternoon. All right, well,
The things we do as the things we
Yep.
do as Starship fans, staying up late.
Yes, definitely something there. Okay, so let's go over and have a look at Massey's.
So yeah, there's plenty going on over there at the moment. There's certainly quite an exciting development happening, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, there has been a lot of changes at Massey's this week. We've got the new tank over here on the left. A lot more grading, preparing for concrete work in other places. Yeah, that's all cleaned out up there. But that tank over there was definitely, I don't believe it's plumbed in yet. Was it plumbed in?
No.
No, that's right. It was sticking out there in the middle. If we go over to
a little bit extra concrete in here.
Yep, that was filled in. And then if you go up to the hippos, actually, Jake, I'll let you talk about this area up here.
Oh, that sounds cool to me. So, yeah, as you can see, since the last flyover, this area at the top of Massey's has become quite busy. We've got a mixture of a concrete batch plant being set up. So we're possibly expecting a lot of concrete to be poured here at some point. Though it's not quite clear yet what all this concrete is going to be used for. We also have a CFA drilling rig. So what that'll involve is drilling holes into the ground, and then the concrete gets poured through the drill bit of that drilling rig. And then, yeah, they'll just pull the drill bit out, and then they'll lower in the caisson cages to create the piling then. Although that's still not clear yet either what all these pilings are going to be for. But one interesting thing I could see there, they have constructed 2 pedestals for 2 subcoolers. So it does look like we'll have a test stand of some kind at the top of Massey's. I know there's been a lot of speculation of a static fire test pad of some kind up here. I'm still a bit on the fence about it, just simply due to the fact it's right next to the Mexican border there. So I don't quite know how they regulate that. But yeah, this is just something we're going to have to keep an eye on and see what develops from here.
I do find it interesting that they are setting up, essentially a concrete farm here, but they did not do something like that while they were working on the foundation for the OLM, and that used a considerable amount of concrete. So, is there something unique about this situation requiring possibly more concrete than what the OLM did, making it, reasonable to construct a farm here, or is this maybe just an ease of access for them that they have the space, so they might as well do it?
I think they might want to do a big pour in one go, I think. So rather than lots of little pours, having the concrete batch plant might assist with it. Less pours, basically, for whatever's going up here.
Another thought, maybe they could use some on Highway 4, but some people coming back from that went down to the launch are telling me that it's already set up for asphalt on Highway 4, so probably not for Highway 4.
And we've seen some deliveries that look like they're going to be going into the launch area that might need a lot of concrete, but that still remains to be seen where those are going.
This little building over here is not too much change. There's a ladder put in. They've put in some of the framework for the drywall on the lower floor there. We still no sign of a bridge crane, but we can see, just let my eyes adjust, we can see on this far wall there's still an opening in that far wall for a door, a possible door, and maybe even here. Well, that one looks like it's getting filled in, but that back area looks like it's going to remain open. I relate sometimes with shadows. Sometimes it can be tricky to get your eyes to adjust to what's actually going on in there. But yeah, there's an open doorway behind there. Okay, we can move on to Sanchez. There's not much happening changed in the test area. Still waiting for... We don't know whether that test has happened for that article or not for the payload bay. We'll only really know that lifted out, I guess.
I think, yeah, the only indicator we'll really have with this is just any warping anywhere on the side of the article. It's just like when they tested the nose cones in there as well. That was pretty much the only indicator we had that had been tested. But yeah, this test article is now suddenly probably going to become a whole lot more important if Ship 28 is up next to be flown.
So I'm not sure whether we mentioned it last week, but they've put... there was 24, we know now there was 24 of those lugs on top, and we can see now there's 612 hydraulic actuators down the bottom, so they've just looped the rope from the top down through the ram and back up again to provide the crushing action. And of course there's rams hooked up onto the top here, which will produce some torque force to do some twisting loading on the article here as well. And it's always nice to see the insides of old ships and have a good look at how the plumbing works and just how complicated these silos are, these water towers are that fly.
It's got a nice little pool in the bottom of it now, if you look closely. Filling up nicely with rain there.
Nice little rainfall collection pond.
If you look on the floor next to it, they've actually removed some of the engine shielding for inspections, I guess. So yeah, okay. That'll be part of the false ceiling.
So would they not have any kind of a hatch underneath here? They possibly... Or has they got a hatch?
There should be a hatch in the engine shielding itself. There's false ceiling. But yeah, I guess they've just removed it from the outside, dropped it down, and just slid it out from underneath the sand.
Be a nice, cosy little job up under there.
Yeah, that's quite true.
I suspect once the road work is done to Massey's, we're going to start seeing some shifting around of test articles and boosters. I think they're stuck right now. I know 3 weeks ago you could not get through there, but they should be getting close. I believe from some of our friends who are down there right now said they look like they're really close to being done in that area. So we probably will start seeing some stuff here after Thanksgiving, I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you could just go back again quickly, Stephanie, because I did notice something that has changed up there in relation to what Todd just... never mind. It was, it's a different photo. Can't see it in this photo, but there is now SPMTs underneath Booster 11. So we can probably expect to see it come back soon.
Okay, now I can't see anything of the SPMTs here.
It won't be in this photo.
We did see 2 SPMTs move during the lead up to the launch, I believe.
Yeah.
They passed in front of La Padre's rover camera, rover 1. Okay, Sanchez. A little interesting development here is these conduits being brought forward from the trench forward, and so there's speculation there's always speculations whether they're going to come across the front here or go through under the highway. It doesn't quite seem logical to go under the highway because they've already got their main extra high voltage feed going from this little pit here right across to the main big transformers, and then from the big transformers it gets distributed around and goes through the smaller transformers, well, not these ones in particular, but transformers like this, like at Star Factory and so on. So it's unlikely to be another feed from the highway. So it's a bit unsure what's going on with these conduits right now. But otherwise, they've continued to get these conduits put into these bolts to power this building.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they manage to get that last bit of land on the end as well. Maybe this is conduit going in place for something to go there at some point. It's totally wild speculation. But yeah, that's something worth keeping an eye out for.
I think all we can do with that area right now is just wild speculation. I'm definitely looking forward to the next round of pictures to see what's going on next week.
Absolutely, Todd. Now we were expecting this black ring to move, and it did move, but it only moved to there. So while it's exciting that it moved, it was a bit of an anticlimax that it only moved to there.
Just needed a little quick stretch of his legs.
And we did get some ground shots this week, through the week.
Yeah,
and a fantastic shot of it right here.
With the movement to that spot, that leaves it completely exposed to the gate. And yeah, this is the kind of pictures we're going to be able to get. So we should be able to watch it as it continues to be built. We should be able to see more and more details than what we could before. I do like this move. I think it's a good one for us.
Some things we noticed is these clamp arms get slid in and out via this worm screw, which is activated by this electric motor here. So there would be a gear here and another gear up here to, like a nut that turns to move these slides in and out. And another thing to note is just how adjustable this thing is. So they can adjust. Hang on, I'll get a better one of these over here. So they can adjust this slider in quite a few different ways. They can lift the back up and down or left and right, and the same on the front here with these little slots in here and under here. And how far the slide goes in when it goes home can be adjusted with this adjustment here, which gives them the ability to very accurately position these clamps in the 3D space when the booster sits on here. And we can see the end of the screw here, and we think that would be electrical or hydraulic line going up to actually activate the actual clamps. So this will be, you could push a switch, open the clamps, drop the booster in, or drop the booster in, bring the slides in with the clamps open, then close the clamps with the booster on it without having to do all the manual adjusting they have to do with the tanks, with the current transport stands.
So maybe something to add on to that, Stephanie, is maybe for viewers who aren't really sure what they're looking at when we zoom in on that clamp there. So the black part, if you want to zoom back in into that little window there. So you see there's those blue caps are covering bolts which are going upwards. And then above that, there's kind of this black block. I call it the load block. I have no idea if that's an actual term or not, but this is essentially what the booster sits on. These are the same style clamps that are on the actual OLM. So there's actually a groove cut in the top of this black block that the little lip on the booster actually sits inside of. And then the actual silver part that you can see, which is presumably like either an aluminum or a stainless steel. It's probably a stainless steel. That is actually the clamp itself. And you can actually see there's like a groove toward the bottom part of it right there. That's actually the little lip piece that the booster would fit into. So when that clamp retracts back away from us, that's then what would allow the booster to move up and down vertically without being contained or restricted. So that's actually how the clamps look kind of in higher definition up close. I know there's some photos of the orbital launch mount from many months ago, maybe even a couple of years ago, that kind of show the exact same system. But it's unique to kind of see that happen on these stands as well. And I will admit, my tune is changing a little bit on these stands. The fact that they're building a third one, these definitely appear to be some sort of a next generation transport stand slash build stand. versus being related to any sort of like engine testing. So I'm ruling out the idea that these would ever be used for static fires at this point.
Just on
Yeah,
that, if there were to be any kind of engine testing, they would need the booster engine quick disconnects, and we can see no evidence of anything to do with booster quick disconnect mechanism here inside these, in between the clamp series, which is where they would need to be. These look more like crew access points.
Yep. For a while, I remember one of the live streams a couple of weeks ago, we speculated that there might actually be openings for the quick disconnects, but it appeared like they were like every other section maybe had a hole, and I believe what we were actually seeing was these holes that kind of see through the structure to provide access to the inside and outside. So I don't think we're actually going to get any sort of a quick disconnect on any of these stands.
yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat as well now. I think these are new transport stands for the boosters. Obviously, the clamping system on this will make it much more easier and much quicker to dismount and mount the boosters each time. Because these clamps should be automated, whereas the current transport stands, they have to undo each clamp by hand, which is, well, it's not ideal.
They're really not even clamps. They're essentially a block of steel that they place on top of the lip that the booster would point out the side, and they bolt those down. And you hear them with air hammers unbolting each of the 20 clamps by hand, between lifts and transports. And that process takes, what is it, like an hour plus to just do that?
Yeah.
So this would considerably decrease the time that it would take to secure a booster on these stands.
And
Yeah.
to further, go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, down below, you can see where they're starting to set up for the third one. So it looks like they moved that one up there mainly to get room to start the third one there. Another thing I was thinking about with these being transport stands, because of the mass and the size of them, doesn't it make it so when they transport them on SPMTs, they don't need as much counterweights, if any, or am I wrong on that?
They'll still need counterweights. These should be heavier than the current transport stands being used, but it's not quite as heavy as the booster puck shucker that they're using at Massey's, because that puck shucker they're using, it's actually got a lot of concrete in the bottom of it, not just the thick steel, whereas these are just the thick steel. So yeah, you'll still need to use counterweights, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about the concrete, but yeah, thank you.
It's possible that those 4 spots that we see on the top of the ring currently, those might have something to do with securing this to like SPMTs. If there's something that like drapes down like the backside, I'm not sure why they would reach all the way to the top unless they also had something to do with the stabilization pins as well. So maybe there's something else going on there. Not really sure at this moment.
Yeah, obviously that's worth mentioning. That's the one thing we still don't see on this stand is stabilization pins, which I'd still expect to see being used with these stands. I don't think that's something they just skip now.
So another thought with those black rings is presently they construct the booster up section on rings like this, which wouldn't provide a lot of stability. So I think Phila was saying that he was talking to one of the engineers and they have an issue with QC. So one of the thoughts was that these new stands are a more accurate way to hold the sections together as they're building in the factory. So they could be part of production, they could be part of transport, and maybe not part of engine testing. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. If they go into the mega bays or into the Star Factory, we can tell they're for production, obviously. But that's just another train of thought. Now, while we're here on that train of thought with them being part of construction, this new platform has arrived. It's kind of small, and perhaps it has something to do with placing the thrust puck into the aft section in a much more accurate way, because of all the places of a booster that accuracy is needed, the thrust puck is, as Ryan would understand, is very important to get that thrust puck exactly right, because that affects all aspects of booster flights. So continuing on this area, they've added to this platform for the new white stand. We can see the white stand legs are over here. And there may be extra legs, so there may even be another white stand coming yet.
Yeah, because we got Mega Bay 2 on the way as well, so we may be seeing stands start being made for that bay also. So yeah, it would make sense if we start seeing extra parts here.
So they've cleaned up this area here. There's those white triangles, we're not sure where they went to. The tents and everything they had set up here where they were putting those safety shields has all been moved. So this area seems to be getting cleaned up, some concrete getting prepped here. And they put together this crane, putting together that some of the Kennedy's Tower 3 have arrived here. Section 7 from Kennedy's parts have arrived here. They may be going into here to get put together, Section 7. And why that's over here, well, that's anybody's guess. We may be getting Tower 3 over here. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the signs are pointing towards Starbase in Texas getting a second tower. They've had sections prefabricated in Florida for another tower for quite some time now, but they really didn't have a launch site to take those to. I know SpaceX has been working on, kind of behind the scenes, trying to feel out a couple of different launch locations for Starship out there, as in addition to 39A. But it seems like maybe plans have adjusted and they now want to bring those sections to Texas and put up a second tower here, which we do know for Artemis missions, they plan to use every launch pad that they have available in order to refill the HLS system. So it's very possible that we would get tankers flying from Starbase Texas, using both of the towers, which would be pretty cool to see. And with parts showing up for the towers, it seems like they may be building the top level. That seems to be the only level they did not prefab in Florida. Would have been kind of, I think, whatever the designation, if it's like 8B or 8A, or essentially the top tower section that has the part that kind of hangs over the side, which houses the pulleys, which then raise and lower the chopsticks. We've seen parts for that section show up. So I would assume that they will prefab that section here, possibly in Sanchez. And then at some point, we will probably see the full sections being barged over from Florida, which will be quite the sight to see. Not sure if they'll have enough room to store them or where they're going to store them. I know there's been some speculation we might get into or touch on here, but they may wait to bring those over until after they kind of have a foundation set in stone, and essentially do the same sort of assembly line they did before, where they kind of bring the tower sections over as they need them, lift them into place, and then rinse, repeat. So if I had to guess, it would probably be a pretty well-oiled machine like that, with those prefab sections kind of showing up when they're needed.
Yeah, thanks for that correction. I said they brought sections for Section 7. Section 7 has been built, and they brought parts for Section 8 over here. Thanks for that.
And I will address this as well. There has been some talk of them building a taller tower. I think that's definitely possible. I know these parts are not going to be for the existing tower. They're not going to modify the existing launch tower to try and make it taller. If they were going to do that, they wouldn't be bringing in parts for the top section when they already have a perfectly working top section that if they wanted to reuse, they could, hack it off the top of the tower, throw in another truss section, and then put the top back on. That's obviously a lot of work, but they're not going to do that. So they could potentially show up with additional column sections and build another, section 7 or 6 or whatever the uniform sections are. and we might have a little bit of a taller tower. I'm leaning towards no, but anything can happen. We'll definitely see what they do with that.
Yeah, before we move on, Joe, do you want to go through questions or donations?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've had a lot of support, and well, I think we broke some viewership records in here today. So please, everybody that's joining us for the first time, or maybe the second time, give the stream a like. We've had a lot of people slinging green and making friends. So I want to thank Jim Cavett for gifting a membership before the stream started, as usual, along with Jake Winlow giving 5 memberships, Methane Man with 5 additional memberships, Jonathan McD with a membership, or rather, joined as RGV Flight Supporter, 55 Chevy Guy Steve, 5 gifted memberships, Jim Cavett with another one, Sheriff Tracy gifted a membership, Rocket Prophet gifted 10, Methane Man with 5. We've had some support additionally. Andre Souza, 10 ruples, perhaps. Not sure what that denomination is. Michael E. Dennis, $4.99 super chat. Let's go. Is it possible the FTS was triggered on both vehicles as a demonstration considering the outcome of the last flight? Ryan, you want to take that?
Sure. When it comes to the booster, I think there's maybe 2 things at play. If we looked at SpaceX's graphics, once the boost back was beginning, it looks like they initially got, I think, 12 of the Raptors to possibly light up, and then they started kind of dropping off. And it burned for a little bit with roughly about half of those Raptors, the center Raptors, relit. And then it ultimately blew up. Now, it's possible that there was a thrust imbalance with only having a couple of those on there actually running, and it started to point in a direction that it should not have, and that caused the flight termination system to go off. It could also be a factor that it was not slowing down as quickly as they were expected. And with these early missions, you're probably going to have a little bit tighter of abort criteria. So it's possible that the flight termination was activated simply because the booster was not going to be able to make it back to where they were targeting for a landing or a splashdown zone. So I think for the booster, that's probably highly likely. The ship is still a mystery. Personally, I do not think that the FTS went off on the ship. I think that there was something else that happened. But that's my take.
Right on. And so,
Also,
Christian,
real quick,
go
Joe,
ahead.
I think if the intention was to test the FTS, they would have had that in the flight plan, because if it's not in the flight plan and FTS goes off, it's going to trigger an investigation. And if that was their plan, they don't want an investigation because it went to plan. So, yeah, I don't think it was planned that way.
Agreed. And along the same note, Christian Shea mentions, my thinking is that the ship lost thrust vector control because of the hydraulic system, as the last booster lost its TVC in the first flight.
I mean, on the hydraulic power units during the suborbital hops, they worked pretty fine, but this was a lot higher this time. So yeah, it's possible that was to blame for the anomaly for this launch.
I think people have noticed that on startup and on shutdown, the staggered sequence of the engines you could see quite well with the infographic down here.
You can see it quite clearly on the bottom of the rocket as well, the bottom of the booster.
Something that I would like to note about the graphic there on the screen is kind of looking at it. There's some stuff that doesn't quite make sense, and I think what's going on is the graphic has like a refresh rate for new incoming data. So it's possible that SpaceX is getting data, but they're only choosing to send like an interval of that data to the screen. So like, for instance, on liftoff, there's kind of a weird pattern of the engines kind of turning on and the timing associated with that. And I'm kind of feeling like they, the way that the engines ignite wasn't exactly represented correctly with the graphic. Kind of the short way of saying this. So I wouldn't take that graphic in its timing entirely to truth. There may be some other stuff going on there that may be a little bit misleading.
Okay.
Right. Jim Cavett with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much for the after photos, RGV aerial photography and team. Trains are rolling. Crane did have a question. Does the concrete factory at Massey's connect to the new tower sections arriving in Boca Chica? Which we kind of already touched on. Anybody want to elaborate any further?
I'd say no. That's yeah. It just seems like totally the wrong place to me to have a concrete batch plant if it's anything to do with the tower. Yeah, that would either be at the launch site. Well, yeah, just be at the launch site really. And we could probably expect to see the tower sections being assembled at Sanchez, so that would be the other place for a concrete batch plant. But possibly, yeah.
Right. Joe X with a question. Do you think we will ever see static fire at Massey's?
It seems like
I'm still on the
Personally,
fence
I'm
about it.
closing the book on having vehicle static fires here. It does appear like they're preparing to build something big. I'm not sure what that is. They might be able to get by with Raptor engine firings if they wanted to have like a smaller test stand over here, possibly for just Raptor engines. Maybe they could be doing that. They might be building like a like a 3 or 4 bay like vertical test stand with kind of like a flame trench and stuff. Maybe that's why they need all this concrete over here. But I'm personally, I don't feel like they're actually going to static fire full vehicles here. I think it's too small of a footprint.
Could it be
Yeah,
even more cryo testing stations? So they need to drill piles to make these parking bays for ships and boosters. So maybe it could just be simply cryo stations.
that is definitely a possibility, and I'm closing my book on the possibility of static fires here. I know other people might not be yet, but I'm definitely done with it. But cryo stands, definitely, they do use those pile drivers or the CFAs for those.
yeah, I'm still not entirely sure what to think. But the one thought I did have recently is it would probably actually add a bit more time on the testing campaigns if they static fired vehicles here. Because if you think about it, you've got to roll a vehicle to Massey's without its engines for cryo testing and pack shocking. Then you've got to roll it back to the build site, install the engines. Then you roll it back to Massey's for static fire testing. And then you roll it back all the way down to the launch site. And that just seems kind of silly to me, really. Just seems like excessive movement.
Considering static fires, like if you take a booster, say this one, number 11 here, it comes here and has its cryo testing campaign, then goes back and gets its engines, it only needs to do a single static fire and then launch. And I don't think that's, especially at this early stage of research and development, I don't think it's too much to ask of the OLM to do a static fire for a booster and then a launch within a couple of days once they restock the orbital tank farm, was one of my thoughts as well.
And if they do plan on building a second tower and OLM, which presumably tower is likely going to come first, but if they do add another OLM, now they have double the throughput. They can have 2 boosters out there doing stuff at the same time. So that would kind of negate the need to have somewhere separate for boosters to do a static fire.
Okay, that's great. Joe, any more questions on Macy's?
Indeed. Yep. Maybe not necessarily Massey's. Let me see. I want to thank Steve Coates for a couple of bucks for the cause. Henry Blackburn, a general question. Why was the CH-4 header tank moved under the LOX header tank? Why did SpaceX do this since it means less space for crew/cargo?
I can answer that. It's mainly to do, I think, with balancing the weight out in the ships. So when they added the 3 RVACs, that of course added more weight to the bottom of the ship, and then that meant that they had to add more weight to the top of the ship to balance things evenly. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about header tanks affecting the crew compartment space in the future, because they likely will redesign the header tanks. This is just I just think this is a temporary thing, just moving that header tank to where it is now. And then the next step will just be to redesign the header tank so it takes up less space.
And maybe another thing to add to that real quick would be that the tip of the nose is relatively unusable space because of its weird shape. It would be a lot better for them to cram as much smaller electronics, tanks, COPVs, stuff like that they can kind of pack in there into the tip of the nose, because otherwise it really doesn't yield a lot of like payload volume up there, especially for like crew would be a little bit different because you can kind of fit people in smaller places than you can fit a massive satellite. But for the most part, I think the top quarter of the nose cones are pretty much unusable space. So putting anything they can in there to reduce space further down is a lot better, long run, even, thinking for like bigger, ships which would have bigger doors for like satellites and whatnot.
Sure enough. All right. Question from F14D Jared C. What nose cone is that near the ground fab building? Something for Sanchez.
Yep, that's designated S33 nose cone.
Yep, that's correct.
It's got a different nose cone number though, I think, because the nose cone numbers don't line up to the ship numbers at the moment, because they've scrapped quite a few. They've scrapped a few of the nose cones. So a bit different, this one, to the last nose cone we saw here getting scrapped a couple of weeks ago. The one from a few weeks ago was quite unfinished. It wasn't tiled. It had some holes in the side of the nose cone, so part of the internal structure sticks out through holes of the nose cone where the flaps attach and so on. The first nose cone a couple of weeks ago didn't have any of that, but this one has, and it's got its tiles as well. So this one made it quite a way through the production, and now it's getting scrapped, we think.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unusual one, really. Maybe there's a slight redesign in the next load of nose cones, and they just decided they're just going to skip this last nose cone using that design. Maybe just speed things up a bit.
The ring watchers, I'm pretty sure, believe that a lot of changes are going to culminate in ship 34. Is that right, Ryan?
I'm not up to date on the future changes, but I know for the most part, a lot of the ships in the lower 30s are relatively the same. So it seems like around 35 is when they might make like another block upgrade, as we would refer to it.
Okay, Joe, is there more donations and questions, or shall we move on to the rest of Sanchez?
Yeah, I want to thank Sharpie for a $10 donation for all the good work you do, RGV team. Thanks, Sharpie. Appreciate you. Rocket Profit, $10 super chat, seconding what Sharpie just said. And then we got Keith Penny with 10 euros. I can't have you making me feel cheap. So thanks for that. We had Zach in chat in YouTube, and he directs a question at Ryan. Hey, Ryan, how do you make sense out of those kettle boilers? Since we're closing the book.
Would that be the ones at Massey's?
Yeah, since we're closing the book,
Yeah, those are a little interesting. Having several of those there, it's something that still kind of trips me up. Part of the reason why I was holding on to having static fires here, but they technically don't need to do static fires of full vehicles here to necessarily have kettle boilers. It's possible if they were to have like Raptor testing stands that they might have a kettle boiler to add propellant to a kind of a holding tank for Raptor testing. But the fact that they've got 4 of them here, that still is a little interesting. Maybe 2 for methane, 2 for LOX. Still seems a bit much. I'm not sure what they have at McGregor for testing there, but might have to keep an eye on those and see if they put them next to each other or kind of separate away from each other. That might give us a little bit of an indication.
Well, on those kettles, there's two over here, and this area is even less suited for static fires. This area may be suited for static fires, and there's kettle boilers going over there. So one theory about the kettle boilers, and I really hate talking over Zach like this, but there could be because they want to use the colder propellants to make it more flight-like. That's just one of the speculations getting around, and I'm open to all ideas still, because every time I say it's going to be something, it is totally something different. So I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, right on. Gotcha. I want to thank Brian Green for just becoming a member, and remember that the galleries will be posted to your YouTube and Patreon especially. We did get a flyover this morning, and we're going to be doing a show and tell on that later, so all new members are welcome. Please do join us, and let's go ahead and move on. We got a clear queue.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Joe. That's awesome support. Thank you, everybody. That helps to make this show happen and the flyovers happen, so thank you very, very much. Okay, where to next? Let's go to this bunker next, shall we? Just while we're here, so this area is getting very much cleaned up, as we thought, for the tower sections. So we seem to have a false floor put in ready for a ceiling or a mezzanine floor. Perhaps this is going up even higher. I'll bring up a ground shot in a second, and we can see the rebar, which I call Rio bar, is sticking up higher than the walls here. So the starter bar is going up for a higher wall on the edges here. And around the outside, even though it looks like a double wall, that's just scaffolding around the outside. Just be a minute and I'll get this ground shot. So what do we think this building's going to be? Is the next
Honestly,
big question.
hard to say, but a lot of people are thinking an electrical bunker, something to do with electrical equipment, drop room, the way it's being built, where it's at with the how the wires go in the underground, all the three-phase goes right into that area. A lot of people are thinking that, but I don't think anybody is set yet.
Yeah, that building is very confusing to me as well. It seems quite overly built, comparatively to a lot of the other buildings in the area. And whatever is going inside of it, they seemingly want to protect. So maybe like critical systems of sorts for maybe protection against storms. It's about the only thing I can really think. But it is odd that they do have a lot of their electrical, distribution outside. And so would they, change all of that and put it inside now? Or is this for something completely different?
Andrew in chat suggesting a data center, perhaps?
I'm open to all suggestions, although it does seem to be hooking into quite a lot of conduits that are in this trench, which we know is for electricity, for power, rather than communications. But like I said, I'm open to any suggestions. It may have some kind of communications in here.
I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but off to the right, those power packs have been completely removed from their foundations and removed from the wiring. So they're changing a lot of stuff in that area, and so much at one time. It's just so hard to get a grasp on what anything is until it's further along, because, there's just so much going on. As you guys will see in a few minutes here, it doesn't stop.
I was just trying to find another aerial shot. You can see there's a doorway on this wall here in one of the aerial shots. I
believe there's two doors. There's the higher up man door. It looks like it's a raised level man door. And then I believe there's a garage door on that one, and possibly in the back side too, we were looking at.
Another thing to note here is these notches here. So it looks like we're getting some concrete beams across here to support the next floor level. And perhaps the staircase in this section hasn't got any formwork in it. Okay, what else in this area while we're here? We can see they've put this water treatment plant into use. You can see water in them now. And there's some more concreting perhaps. Next section would be this air separation unit. We can see they've moved these two brown tanks, which they just put there, and they're clearing land out for some more concrete in that area. So the fate of this tank is unknown. Funny, I was talking about how the shadows trick your eyes sometimes. It looks like the top of this tank is leaning over, but it's just the shadows. So the air separation unit, when these arrived here, these sections were complete with all the innards inside them, and now they're pulling it apart. They seem to be totally scrapping them and taking the inner bits out as well, and even the outside framework they seem to be pulling apart, scrapping as well. So it doesn't look like this unit's going to get reused anywhere. It really appears like they're scrapping the whole thing, and there's a whole heap of arguments as to why.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they use this new bit of land for once the rest of this air separation unit's gone.
Also, we're clearing out stuff. If you go down to the left, that crane that was sold off to a company, I guess a long time ago, we're starting to see that ship out too. Yep, right over there to the left. We've seen some ground shots of that heading out on trucks. So they're just cleaning out like crazy.
This part here we saw on a truck, I believe.
That's correct.
And there was another part that left as well, but yeah, it does seem like we're finally gonna have a BFC free Starbase.
Thanks, Ryan. They've moved the ship cry stand, I think, was moved down here. So we've got a ship cry stand ready for ship 30 to go to Massey's, and
Yeah, that'll be the ship that's up next. And I should imagine it won't be too long until that happens.
and hopefully we've got an engine stand here for the next ship to fly, which may be ship 28 or 26.
It's 28 from because there was a FCC filing that went out not that long ago, and it does mention a ship going orbital and a whole recovery attempt as well. Which, to be honest, I'd say that lines up more with ship 28 than ship 26.
Yeah, I kind of share that opinion. Although I did feel like had this launch not gone to plan, they probably would have used every available booster nose cone that they can, which in that case could have been ship 26. Just in the anticipation that another booster may not be able to get the job done. But yeah, Booster 9 performed very well, so I very much see 28 pretty much being next in line. And one thing to note with that is we did see a lot of tiles fall off 25 around the seams of the different barrel sections when they build them in the high bay. Those tiles are glued on. And we have seen them, you can actually see in that photo that was just up there, that they have been testing the tiles on 28, and they've been kind of using a suction cup to pull them off. So that pattern is pretty similar to what we saw fall off on 25. So presumably they're just testing that, trying to get some better methods for actually gluing those tiles on. So I'm kind of optimistic we won't see that happen on 28 if they can come up with a solution for a lot of that happened.
Yeah, a lot of tiles came up.
Yeah, also, did I just mishear what you said, or did you just call that a booster nose cone, the ship?
I did call it a booster nose cone.
I've heard it called a mass simulator, but booster nose cone, that's a new one to me.
I've been hearing Ryan call the a ship a glorified booster nose cone all week. It's been quite amusing. But it's probably accurate too, because at the moment, the most critical thing to get right at the moment is the actual booster flight, because nothing can happen until the booster does the job like precisely. It's got to do precisely the right job too.
So there is another change in this area. The two brown water tanks that were moved next to that new white one, they now seem to have gone.
Yeah, I just covered that earlier. Yeah, they've been moved to there.
Which is
I did expect to see the black stand move over here, because they've got stands here, looks like ready for that black stand, but that didn't happen. It only moved just only a matter of meters.
Yeah, I have noticed that they are still adding some stuff onto the black stand. I think it was a few days ago they did start adding new white railings around the top of it. So that's likely why it hasn't moved over to the rocket garden and onto those legs yet.
Joe, any questions or donations now from Sanchez, please?
We are clear, my friend.
Awesome. Anyone, anything else to add to Sanchez before I move on?
There was one tiny thing. There is another set of 2-point ship lifting arms that are over by the container wall by the black ring. So if you zoom into that area, yeah, right about there. So it seems they are confident with the design, I think. And you'll notice that the load spreader bar there is up on two, I'm not sure what you call them, two stands, which I'm guessing is because they're painting it. So yeah, we'll see two of these systems in action soon, I guess.
What are those two things here?
That I've been still not 100% sure. I have seen mention that they may be possibly stabilization pin units for the black ring that's been moved recently. Can't quite see it yet, but yeah, that's one of the possibilities with this.
All right, let's go to the build site. 1 second. Buffering. Okay, we've got some more concrete poured on the top of Mega Bay 2. So it's fully concreted now on this floor. You can see the old concrete and the new concrete in this photo. We can see the tops on the elevator shafts, the lift shafts. And we can see them protrude through the roof. I think Blackwood was saying they look like they were going to protrude through the roof, and they did. So I guess there'll be a little shelter up over the top here with no finish.
Yeah, it seems like it might be some sort of roof access. There's not a lot of clearance, so if you see it from the right angle, to get out of the tops of those lifts and onto the roof.
These are as far as I know, these are where the winches and that for the actual lift go, for the cables and everything up here.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. When you mentioned the concrete being finished on top of the floor there, one thing we might see happen quite soon now is all the glass for the Mega Bay being lifted up to the top here. Because at the moment it's taking up quite a bit of space in the middle of the ring yard, all of that glass.
Not exactly the best place to keep something as breakable as glass.
Exactly.
The white odd-shaped stand we saw there last week has been put into the Mega Bay 1 here, and from our renders from Chrome Kiwi, it looks like we may have a third engine stand in here yet.
Yeah, it does. Does seem like the most likely outcome. That'd be pretty cool to see that, actually. All three stands in the back there.
And that leaves room behind the stands for the engines to come out of Raptor Roost and around into these engine bay. Raptor Roost? The Raptor Nest, sorry, back there. Okay, we've got ship 32's
32 on the left.
aft section here, which since this photo has been moved into the high bay and put on a turntable, and ship 32 has been lowered down on top of it, ready for welding.
So yeah, we have yet another fully stacked ship. That rocket garden's gonna probably have to grow at some point.
Yes,
Pretty soon, I think.
Very quickly moving right along. We've been getting requests for a ring watcher to be with us. I'm sorry we couldn't provide a ring watcher today, but Ryan's pretty good at rings, knowing what rings are. So I know there's a booster top. There's a booster dome. I think there's a booster section here, but it's upside down for that dome.
So, yeah, on the right there, you've got the S26.1 skirt, the little short ring.
Oh, sorry, that's not a boost. Sorry, that's the test ring. Yeah, I apologise.
Yeah, that's the one that was tested at Massey's. It remains to be seen what's happening with that, because they didn't send it straight to the scrapyard. So, I don't know. Maybe they're going to modify it for something else and do further testing.
Yeah, we haven't
Did we see
seen
damage? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if we've actually seen if there's any damage to it. We know that the hot stage ring that they used just for this the flight today, it was slightly modified. There were a couple of external stringers that this one did not have, and I don't think they added any to it out at Massey's. And we haven't seen another one made, presumably for Booster 10. So it's possible they may actually try and use this for Booster 10. I know it doesn't have the actual blast dome in it, but it's possible they could actually add that to it, depending on exactly what their manufacturing process is for that. So we may actually see it used in flight, but we'll have to wait and see.
That was certainly be quite a sight if that does happen. So I know a lot of people have been wondering that if they will actually use it on a vehicle.
I can't believe I made that mistake. Too much excitement for one day, I think. So yeah, that's the test ring. So these the size of these articles here make these truck look like toys.
Yeah, I realise we got quite a lot of booster transport stands sitting around now, not actually being used. And I guess that's probably to do with the fact there's no other types of stands inside of Mega Bay 1, like the engine installation stand, for example. Plus, they just, rest in peace, just got rid of Booster 9.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that we probably see less of those transport stands altogether. Being that they have those engine installation stands now that they'll be using, so they'll have 3 of them. So you could have 3 boosters basically held up by those stands now, and that frees up 3, stands that would otherwise be moving boosters back and forth. So it's entirely possible that the 3 that they're building right now, those might be the only 3 they have for a little while.
Yeah, I'd say that's all they really need for a long time. It's I could definitely see that being the case.
Let's have another go. There's a booster forward section.
Yeah. I think that's the speculated 14.1 booster forward dome. I'm not 100% sure, but that you'll find is quite incomplete in places. It lacked the lifting points, and of course you can see that there's no grid fin hardware in there either. So yeah, that's what 14.1 is actually going to be used for. I don't think that's quite clear still, or even if 14.1 is actually still going to become a thing.
Okay, thanks for that. Another angle of inside the Mega Bay 1 here. where we see booster 10. And that's the corresponding stand for the other side of the projected third white ring in here.
They've got a nice lot of scaffolding on top of that platform. That seems to be going to a platform that's going around the stand on the left there, if you look carefully.
I see up there.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well spotted. That's an odd piece sitting there. That looks a little bit like the part we saw in the Starlink integration building a while ago. We thought it was part of a press, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I did wonder if it's maybe pressure system related in any way. Although the pressurization units are usually a lot bigger than that.
So I'm wondering where the quick disconnect is on this booster. We can't see the grid pins, so we can't see there. So we can see ship 32 here getting ready to be lifted out of the way for the aft section to come in, I believe.
Yeah, that's something else worth noting as well, that maybe now that IFT2's happened, we may see booster stacking speed up again. Because, of course, there has been a bit of a lull with that. There was, they've had the booster 13 LOX tank sitting in the right of Mega Bay 1 for quite a while now, waiting for its thrust section. So, yeah, with a bit of luck, we'll see that speed up again.
Onto Star Factory, we can see some of the concrete has been poured for the footings and some more Rio laid out, some real more rebar mesh. In Australia, we call it Rio. It's a bit like servo, bottle-o. We tend to just put O on the end of words. So there's some Rio bar in there and in these ones as well. Still plenty of water in these holes, which I hope is not an issue in the future.
Yeah, they make some nice swimming pools if you're, into nice dirty water like that.
And they're still laying conduit here, there, and everywhere with their trenches full of water. That must be a bit of a nightmare for the electricians to keep all the water out of their conduits. And the equipment's been having fun in the mud again, I see this week.
That's nothing new for Starbase.
Got a new roof section here on this front section of the higher Star Factory. So I guess we'll see that replicated on this section very soon.
Yeah, it does seem like they want to start extending the high end of the factory towards the bays as soon as they can, because as soon as they have left that side of the high end completely open, probably see in the next month or so start to go to the right.
I think the idea here is to finish off the nose base section all the way through so they can commission the nose base section, and then they can decommission this tent and then finish up the section in here.
Whilst we're on that subject of tent 3, it did look a little bit this week like they have actually started emptying tent 3. We did see quite a few sections coming out of there. So maybe they're finally starting to think about bringing down tent 3.
So they'll need to use, they just about could use this back section of this section of Star Factory to replace, before they can pull this tent down. As far as I know, they'll need part of this section, part of this factory to be operating. Yep.
Yeah, and apart from the tooling in tent 3, I should imagine they've actually used up a lot of the sections that were in there. So it's probably not as full anymore.
And they're not exactly, in the need of having nose cones made, because they have quite the backlog of ships right now. So they could probably use, like a 2-month stand down from productivity on the nose cones, probably.
That's what I was going to say about all the ships they have right now, is maybe they were just getting ahead of the game so that, yeah, they can knock that down real soon and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I do feel like that has been kind of a push, as they've really been trying to get a lot of these ships out and tested and put in the rocket garden, kind of anticipating that there would be a slowdown of production at some point.
And we can fully say goodbye to the idea of any windows at the front of this section of the high part of Starbase, at least. Anyway, we may see windows down this end, hopefully.
Yeah, I did see an interesting point someone raised the other day, is that side of the factory facing Highway 4. It is a different type of cladding, like a more temporary. So maybe they're just covering it up for the time being until the whole factory's built, and then they might go back and install windows. Because there is no kind of insulation behind that cladding, which is sort of a bit of an odd thing.
Okay, and it's just about to finish this wall off. Thanks, Jake. Which is all looking very nicely finished. A little bit more insulation and roof iron to go on.
Yeah, the that side of the high end facing down towards the village, it has now been completely covered over. So I should imagine it's just the roof that they're left working on now, covering up.
Thinking back to some of the videos I saw of the launch, I know there was a couple cameras pointed at the production site, and you could actually see the sheet metal on Mega Bay 2 kind of rattling from due to the sound waves from the launch. And I wonder what it sounded like inside of the Star Factory with kind of all the unfinished walls, of how loud that might have been.
Massive big echo chamber.
So basically, IF2 was a bit of a stress test for Mega Bay 2 as well, and it seemed to pass the test.
Very good. So we've got, I can't remember these were here last week or not, the little tiny homes. Nothing still on this section here. I have a speculation they may use this section to store some of the sections of Tower 3. They may have to put some concrete footings down first, though, to put them there, as far as I know.
Yeah, I have noticed there does seem to be a lot more of those tiny homes showing up as well. They pretty much filled the car park up with tiny homes. So maybe they'll move to the right as well, onto that bit of land eventually.
Yeah, that's a good thought, yeah. Just on that, on tiny homes and so on, we thought that this area was going to be for the airstreams, but it appears, just one moment.
More tiny homes.
So there's the airstreams, and there's sort of two sorts of tiny homes. There's the ones they've got at the front here, which we think are more for the contractors area down here. And then for workers, there's this other style of tiny home. And if we see how these are laid out and the size of the slabs, remember there's two sizes of these here, it fits in with this section over here, so I guess that we're going to have those tiny homes in here rather than the airstreams. They're still pumping water out of the ground here, and we can see building progress is powering along. We've got this roof completed. This one's still in the, I can't remember what the Americans call how you do the roofing, but there's an underlayer of roofing before you put the shingles on.
I think it's safe to say this time next year, this village is going to be bustling quite a bit.
Absolutely, because there's plenty more homes getting foundations.
It's funny. The one thing that I myself have said, and everybody says when they go to Starbase, is everything is so much bigger in person, except the tiny homes. Man, those small tiny homes, they're small. I know I couldn't do it. It's like the size of a bedroom. They are small ones, man.
So they certainly live up to the name, then.
Especially for single workers, I guess.
Yeah, they definitely live up to their name.
Okay, Joe, any donations and questions for the build site, please?
I would like to thank Brian Green for gifting 5 memberships. Seabreeze with a statement, question, or rather, statement. Early, but best guess. IFT3 by December 31st. Thanks, team.
That's a good question.
I wish we knew.
Maybe a bit too early, especially if SpaceX want to start getting this tank farm upgraded. Because, yeah, they will need to finish that off at some point. Although it's possible, and I guess it all depends as well how long the investigation takes with the FAA, because that's obviously something that's been triggered again now. Yeah, I won't rule out another launch this year, but I do think it's more likely it's going to be start of next year.
Yeah, at least it's not going to be 7 months again, you know?
Well, yeah, we sure hope not, unless SpaceX changes something at the launch site and triggers another environmental assessment, which
Right.
I don't think will happen.
Yeah, I've been predicting about. I think now that I've seen the pad, I think that if they don't launch again in a span of 4 months, then they probably are, failing at their goal. I think looking at the pad that they could probably get a booster and ship test campaign done in about a month and a half, maybe, if we're really being conservative. And that should give them plenty of buffer to do repairs to the OLM and anything else they need to do, like internally to the ring. So 4 months, I feel like that would be pretty conservative.
Agreed. Another question from Seabreeze. What do you think SpaceX will do if they win the lawsuit for the plot in the middle of Star Factory? Nose cone area?
Well, yeah, just extend on what's already there. It's yeah, it'd be nice if they get that lawsuit out of the way sooner rather than later, but they do seem to have already accounted for that by extending that bit towards the bays.
Yeah, they're basically going to move the whole high section to the right there by that much over here, by the look of it.
Yeah, I mean, with these things, it's. I know some people have said, why don't they just wait for this lawsuit to be sorted out? But if you're trying to set up a production line set up, you want to get it done ASAP. You don't want to be waiting around for things like that, which is why it looks like they've just decided to extend slightly towards the base.
Spaceflight X asks, is B-13 a flight article?
Nothing suggesting otherwise. It's just a case of the Stark in orbit slowing down, but that's maybe because they're going through some kind of redesign, or they were maybe waiting for results of IFT2. So we could see things speeding up again soon, or maybe not. It's hard to tell right now. But yeah, as far as I can tell, it's a flight article.
Can't quite see it here, but yeah, it's just behind the wall here.
And the other thing as well, with B-13, it does actually have some design changes from the previous boosters.
I guess the question could stand because we haven't seen the methane tank at all yet. We've only seen the LOX tank stacked. So it is a good question. Thank you.
We are clear on questions and donations.
Awesome.
Okay, well, anything else to say about the build site, guys? Or move on to launch site?
Did you touch on the door in the Mega Bay? I guess there was the top section. It's hard to see with with everything there, but wasn't there a top section that went in?
There was just a beam across the top there. It seems to have slowed down all this door production. Maybe they're waiting for certain materials to come in, because we have seen that with other things in Starbase in the past. That it's literally just been a case of waiting for materials.
Good question, Todd. Thanks.
Yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything.
Okay, let's go to launch site. 1 second. it is. So, considering there was a launch this week, there hasn't been a lot of changes in the locks in the orbital tank farm at all, or the Deluge area. We have noticed that there was a set of these tanks sitting here has been moved, and it's different to this one here. This is a trailer one, and it was over here last week, over near the nitrogen drop-off point. So that changed, and the manifolds that were over here, for the launch, they've moved them over here out of the way. They've moved all these stands behind here just to give them some more shelter from the launch.
Yeah, it's worth noting even right up until a couple of days before launch, they've still been delivering stuff to the launch site for these tanks. So it does seem like they want to press on with adding this extension onto the tank farm as soon as they can.
We may even see that happen now between Flight 2 and 3, perhaps. Since everything's staged, it seems like it wouldn't be an overly lengthy process to get these couple of more manifolds plumbed in.
Yeah.
It seems like they're all prefabbed now.
Yeah, definitely think that. And I would not be surprised too if those tanks started showing up out of nowhere. They probably just didn't want them there for the flight, and we're going to start seeing the pumps and everything, the manifolds being plumbed in. And I would not be surprised if the tanks start showing up soon.
That's a good big call, but yeah, that'd be lovely to see too. So we've worked
Yeah,
out.
and obviously pending when IFT3 is going to be, I could see it being a case of getting these tanks all placed on the pedestals, getting the pipework connected to all of them, and then, yeah, depending when IFT3 happens, either they'll make the last connections before that launch between these new tanks and the rest of the tank farm, or they'll just leave the connections until after IFT3 if it's going to be sooner. But yeah, we'll see the majority of the work happen before then.
They removed the timber that was covering this trench because that would have been a bit of a risk of them blowing away in the launch.
Yeah, I have just spotted something like, yeah, they seem to have braced that little bit of wall as well ahead of that launch. Yeah.
Well spotted, yep. I did notice that. And while we're here, we've been asked what this red circle is. It's believed to be the exclusion zone for the methane offloading point. So no smoking, no petrol engines and things like that, no grinders or any power tools with brushes and things like that would be excluded from this zone while the tanker is unloading especially.
One thing that did change in the Deluge area was the concrete removal, which is quite interesting because they started doing that like a couple days before launch. We were all a little confused with what they were doing, and the shape is even more confusing, being kind of a rectangle the way that it is, but they left the other little section there, which looks like maybe there's like a little light, and yeah, I think that's a little mobile light generator right there. So really interested to know why they did that, especially so close to launch. It's a little perplexing.
Wasn't that fairly new concrete too?
Yeah, that was not that old, but let's be honest, it's not the first time we've seen brand new concrete dug up in Starbase. It's quite a frequent thing.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the last. Definitely not going to be the last time.
That's where Tower 3. That's where Tower 3 is going to go. Just joking.
I was kind of alluding to that. It is interesting, timeline wise, that they would rip that concrete up about the same time that we start seeing, tower sections show up. And I know, the tower is technically supposed to be just down from the lock or the engine chill pond, kind of, down over here. I think might even have an overlay of that, but I'm not going to take this diagram that seriously right now. One thing that I saw in here that doesn't quite make a lot of sense is if you look at the current tower and where they would take the vehicles to stack them. They stack on that the top side or left side of the tower, and they need room to actually be able to move the vehicles over there and get them underneath the chopsticks. And if you look down where the proposed tower B would be at, the Locke's chill pond is the same footprint in this image. Obviously, it wasn't done yet, but there is next to no room there and to actually be able to lift a vehicle right in that area. So I don't think this is actually where the second tower is going to go. It is going to be shifted to a different location. But it is a little bit interesting where they might move that, because if they shift it back, now your plume from underneath the OLM is going to be shooting directly into the water farm for the first tower. So where
Yeah.
can they position that tower that's not actually going to damage any of the existing infrastructure? So it's interesting. I feel like they may push it back, even further. Back here somewhere between. It might even go where they have the proposed tank farm for Pad B, and this entire area is going to be a completely different site plan. So it's interesting to see that concrete has been removed, and maybe it has something to do with work that they may start with for the second tower at some point.
I mean, yeah, you got the air separation unit on that plan there, but is that even a thing anymore? Because that could be another space right by there for something. Probably not another orbital pad. But yeah, I mean, if they've got rid of the air separation unit from Sanchez, and it probably, I'd say they're getting rid. They're going to give up on the idea of having one at the launch site as well.
So that section that was cut out is just here, I think.
Yeah, that's about right.
So another thought has been getting thrown around is so this area here that's outlined with the purple, that was, and the blue here, that was all with the Army Corps engineers. They got the permit to build all this area up, and they in this one section. So then they built that whole up. They may have the permission from the Army Corps for this whole section now, and they build this section in nibbles, bits and pieces here and there as they move along. As we can see here, there's bits and pieces here being added on. So perhaps they may even just create this part here and put the tower here for a catch-only tower for now, and then later on add the orbital launch mount, just to mitigate risk of landing a booster over here. And to counter that argument, people are saying, no, SpaceX should be more confident than that, especially if they do some landing demonstrations over the ocean and work out just exactly how to hover the booster. But to me, it makes sort of a bit of sense to bring such a dangerous thing as landing a booster over here in the meanwhile. And the other question is, if not here, where would they put Tower 3? This seems a little bit close, and but this does seem accessible.
Yeah, you want it on sort of the edge, away from everything else. So yeah, that's the only other place I can see that going.
Oh, that's what that section looked like. We thought maybe they painted the car parks wrong, but we're only kidding with that.
Certainly the extreme way of getting rid of the paint marks.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we'll go to the suborbital tank farm area, and work on this wall continues with some more formwork going up. And we can see that they're going to put a concrete beam over the top of this gateway here. I think we mentioned this last week. There's scaffold underneath supporting some more formwork up here. So it might be like a ranch-style gateway with a beam over the top of the gateway.
Yeah, Interestingly, they did actually pull all of that down ahead of the launch today. Probably just because they didn't want to get him blown everywhere, possibly. So you should see it going back up again over the next few days.
So did you say they pulled this down, Jake?
Yeah. All of that came down.
Cool. I didn't see that.
Yeah, they took the sections of rebar and they put them on the ground next to it, and then they rapidly tore everything down. I think it was it Friday? No, it was Thursday morning, I believe, was when they started. That was at the time
Yeah.
they thought they would launch Friday, and they got a little extra time, but yeah, it was good. The launch actually happened, and those guys didn't tear all that stuff down for for nothing.
Absolutely, and they've got the Rio bar there, ready to go. Work continues with the conduits and the electrical system, and they've covered up all this area that they had exposed last week. And you can see they've run pipes into here because of the concrete being poured on top. That's all looking nice.
Yeah, you can see where that conduit's going to connect as well. It's on the other side of that trench. You can just about see the ends of them. The existing conduit. So yeah, to your left a little bit, you can see just the ends of some. Down where the... Yeah, that's it. Just around by there.
A little bit out of sight here as well. Okay. What else is on the building, on the launch site? Move those things. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't think much else
mean,
changed. Go ahead.
yeah, nothing else has really changed much, obviously, because, they've been getting ready for the launch. So they've just been trying to keep things clear. Oh, look, it's back when they weren't so dented.
Yeah, there's a great big new dent in here, and I think another great big new dent in here.
I think it's funny that those janky metal stilts in there that kept to hold it up actually worked, because all the dents are around those. So I was kind of shocked when I saw that those were almost the straight areas and everywhere else was the bent area. Not everywhere, but quite a bit.
I think that goes to show the force that's applied on objects even that far away from the mount. It's pretty easy to see how things around the launch site are seemingly displaced by a launch. There's a lot of stuff moving out there. The shock waves, the thrust, and the wind gusts themselves are. It's quite powerful. You would not want to be out there by any means.
Absolutely.
No, yeah, it's very impressive watching that stuff, how the shockwaves move and the stuff that's damaged is done. Yeah, it's very definitely telling.
Our last week's weekly update and ourselves alike from Elon Musk. So well done, RGV production crew. That was a big bonus for us, and it boosted our viewership a little bit as well, which is awesome. Okay, Joe, Astro Joe, could we please have some more donations and questions?
Right. Gridfire did come in with a question just recently regarding the megabays. Do you think they might build a high-level footbridge between office levels of both megabays?
Oh, wow. What a great idea.
Yeah, it'd be quite a sight to see. Though I can't really say I've seen any sort of bridges like that between the other buildings at the other facilities. So personally, I don't think it'll happen. But I wouldn't be against it if it did happen.
It'd be
Yeah,
pretty cool, but I'll tell you what, if I work there, I'm walking down the stairs before I walk across that thing and walking up the other stairs. I know there's elevators, but if that was my choice, I would rather walk the stairs, because no thank you.
I'm with you on that one, yeah. That's all the questions I got. I did see a bunch of chatter in chat regarding, not expecting to see the results of today's flyover. Maybe if we could do a quick comparison between the shots that we got this morning and this one that you've got on screen now, that might be fun.
Okay. 1 second. Well, there's a booster missing and a ship. That's one thing, at least. So, anything in particular you guys want to pick out? There's a nice bit of radiating blast marks everywhere, nice bit of charring. And I don't know, but personally I feel there was more black in the exhaust than we see from the drone shot. It was a dirty exhaust. So it was running a little bit fuel rich, which
Yeah, the
is good.
yeah, the cool thing I've noticed there is on the plate itself, the steel plate, the each of the circles on the plate are a lot more prominent now from where the engines had fired. And I guess
Down on the plate. Yep.
yeah, you can see it way more clearly now. I guess over time that'll become even more prominent.
Absolutely, you can very much. Yep.
Yeah.
It almost seems like the steel in those areas was kept cool by the water coming out of all of the perforations, and so you can see the darkening in the areas that the water wasn't coming out.
That's a good analysis, Ryan. Yep.
Or coming out as heavy, but yeah, that's really neat how that turned out.
Because yeah, that dark, there's kind of the central area, which is kind of all a gray. It's easiest to see in the shadow there of the leg, but that gray area, that's pretty much all holes. And then there's circular holes under each of the outer 20 engines. But then that dark ring type shape that's kind of between those, there actually aren't any holes in that area. That area is completely solid metal. There's no holes there. So it's pretty clear to see how the heat and the water coming out of those perforations would cause a difference in the coloring of the surface.
A bit of charring over here as well. So when it did that maneuver to get away from to clear the tower, it moved over to that direction. The blast, we could see it on the launch too. You could see the blast hitting this side of the OLM. It looks like it's hit down here a bit as well.
I'm curious to see how the booster quick disconnect did underneath there. Did it protect it, or did it just cook inside there? It's gonna be interesting to see the work on the next few days.
I mean, yeah, the IFT1, obviously the doors got blasted off that, and the quick disconnect seemed to still be fine. And this time, none of the doors blew off or anything. So yeah, I think it'd be totally fine.
Yeah, with IFT1, the booster QD has the hood that's kind of on top that would rotate up onto the top side of it, and then there's like a bottom part that kind of folds out with the whole QD structure as it moves toward the booster. So you can kind of see that there's separate pieces. So the ones with the vertical bars, that actually folds out, and on IFT1, I'm presuming it was a piece of concrete, but it actually got between that and the booster QD. So when it closed, it actually bent the corner of it out. And I'm guessing the plume went directly down inside of the booster QD, kind of circulate around. That's what blew the doors off. So the fact that no doors are blown off is a good sign, but they also heavily reinforced those. So it's possible that if gas had gotten inside, it might not have blown out anyway.
Very good observation. So we can see the SQD got a little bit bent out of shape. You can see here it's quite offline.
Yeah, so that was obviously just the piston holding it up on one side. That just seemed to just shear off. Not major.
All the hoses and the wires going to that are all on flex hose. So assuming that the back hinge where it meets up with the actual piston isn't bent or anything funky going on there, it seems like it should be a really simple fix.
Yeah, I guess that'll be possibly one of the changes we see before IFT3 is a bit of strengthening of those piston connections that hold the unit up when it's being used.
I wouldn't be surprised if they actually pull it off the tower, though, to kind of do a full assessment and maybe clean it out.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to see a whole kind of redesign of it like we saw between IFT1 and 2.
And you say there was this ship pin got removed as well somehow.
No, it's the left-hand chopstick. I think it was the pin somehow got extended forward during the launch. Can't see it so much from the air. I don't think it's more of a from the ground you can see it, but
I think the
Yeah.
pins stay technically deployed after they let go of the ship. They don't actually fold them back. So one of them seemingly is no longer deployed. It got folded back. I could be wrong on that. I don't think we have any close-up video of those before launch to know if they're deployed or not. But yeah, it seems like one of them undeployed itself.
Okay, very good.
Might be that one there, I think.
Well, it's great to see so many people in chat today. We've had a good flyover, considering how tired we all are from all the excitement over the last 12 hours. We're about at time, so any last minute questions or donations or comments
I
on the
would like
launch
to thank
site?
Jim Cabot for one gifted membership again. Seismic does have a question. Was the infographic of the ship and booster engines accurate during hot staging? The ring of 10 engines came on in pairs during the flip, and the brightness of the ship engines changes after lit.
We did
Yeah, they did
notice
seem.
on the flip that the engines on one side didn't continue to fire, so that may lead us to think that some sloshing was involved, or for some reason the engines on this side, and because they blew up, it's a good chance they went oxygen rich. I'm only speculating here wildly on what I understand of these engines. When they go oxygen rich, they get hot and then start eating themselves and blow up. But I'm open to be corrected. That did seem, you can see, you'd be able to answer that question during the footage. You can actually see the engine shut down on the booster in order, and we can see whether it matches up to the infographic.
Be around, I think, 2, yeah.
Somewhere about here.
Yeah, this is quite cool. It seemed to shut down in a very sort of organised way, in a certain pattern.
The infographics a little bit ahead, so we saw the outer ring shut down in 2 different stages just then on the infographic, and we do see that on the booster itself. Yeah, right there we can see, and it was the reverse on the startup. There was 5 engines. So on startup, the outer ring, there was 5 engines not started up, and they're the ones that are still running now. So it's shut down all but 5 on the outside ring here.
I've got to say, that makes a nice little Starship snowflake.
And then we saw the center engine shut down in 2 stages as well. So it was, although it was accurate, it was a little bit out of time. And I think Scott Manley's produced a video and he's lined up those 2 images so the infographic is in time. So go and check out Scott Manley's videos. Any more questions?
Nope, I got nothing. We're good to wrap it up. I'll let you guys do your sign off, and I'll send the stream on its way.
We'll just do a quick shout out to this ex-poster here that gave us this bit of ship footage while we're here as well. So, okay, I'll start wrapping up. I'm Stephanie, and I'm Stephanie B, and thank you all for joining us today. It's been a very exciting day, for me especially. Anyway, so I hope everyone else had a great day, and we'll see you in the future. Bye.
See you, everyone.
Yep, everyone take it easy. I want to thank Mauricio for these pictures and getting up there again today. I know he's been hard at work getting the latest pictures ready for us. I believe soon he should have them up in the Google Drive for members and Patreon members. So keep an eye out for those. Everybody have a good weekend and get some sleep. I know I am.
It'll be Iramis photos today.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been an exciting day. I know some of us are probably off to take some naps now. So we'll see you guys here again next week, and maybe we'll have some new photos, and we'll be able to see some repairs and refurbishments of the pad in preparation for getting another booster out there.
Indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a pretty fun day, and it's been quite a long one as well, but been quite awesome to see IF22 finally take place. And of course, there's been a whole load more data coming from that launch that SpaceX can now use to improve on the third flight. Yeah, it's been a pleasure joining in this stream today, and I hope to speak to you all again soon. See ya.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Brian and Todd and Jake. We appreciate your presence. Thanks, Stephanie, for a great presentation. Thanks, Irma, for awesome pictures. Thanks, RGV, for all you do. Jeff, thank you for engineering an awesome stream today, turning the knobs and pushing the buttons. And with that, this is Astro Joe for RGV Aerial Photography signing off. Most engines cut off. Stage separation confirmed. Love you, bye.